Kong, from an Asian point of view, has retained its position. When we undertook our survey 6 months ago, it was ranked 5th in Asia, and it still remains ranked 5th in Asia. It's ranked behind cities such as Seoul, Tokyo and Kobe. So from an Asian point of view, it's still as expensive as it was 6 months ago. When we look from a global point of view, however, now Hong Kong was ranked 78th 6 months ago, but now it's fallen 3 places as cities outside of Asia, particularly in Europe, in North America, have become more expensive and have taken over have actually jumped 3 places above Hong Kong. Now, while Hong Kong actually remains ranked 5th in Asia, relatively speaking, locally inflation obviously has happened in Hong Kong in the last 6 months. We see that prices locally have increased by between 1 or 2%. Not a major change. Well, essentially, as I mentioned, Hong Kong was ranked 5th in our latest survey. Shanghai and Beijing, on the other hand, Beijing is ranked 7th and Shanghai is ranked 8th. And so what we've seen is there's not much difference in terms of our ranking between the two. And what we also see is that these cities are actually starting to catch up with Hong Kong. Hong Kong, in terms of cost of living, hasn't changed much. It's a relatively developed location. Inflation is quite stable. The currency, which is pegged to the US dollar, that's relatively stable, although obviously we've seen big changes with the US dollar this year. Actually driven by peripheral issues such as children's education, whether or not a family wishes to relocate, and also issues regarding quality of living. And these are issues which I believe have a direct impact on whether or not a person decides to come to Hong Kong or not, particularly quality of living. We've seen over the last few years how the air quality in Hong Kong has deteriorated. So this has actually been indicated by expatriates over the last few years as being one of the prime concerns regarding whether or not they choose to remain in Hong Kong or whether or not they choose to come in the first place. From my point of view, I've now been in Hong Kong for about 4 years. I've travelled pretty much throughout the region. I spend quite a bit of time in Singapore, in mainland China, in Japan, in Korea, etc. But for me, in the region, Hong Kong is the best city. From a business perspective, it's convenient. You can travel pretty much anywhere in Asia within 3 to 4 hours. So it's an exceptionally convenient city. And Hong Kong itself, it has that vibe, it has that sort of atmosphere which is lacking elsewhere. Hong Kong is often compared to Shanghai, it's often compared to Singapore, but these two locations, while they have obviously their own attractions, Singapore being a stable society, being a safe country, not saying that Hong Kong is unsafe, but obviously Singapore has a much more safer environment according to our surveys. But Hong Kong has that drive, it has that sort of vibe which is lacking in these other competitors. So if from a personal point of view, I would always choose Hong Kong above these cities.